design stuff. So I have
We're
the
live now, by
words
the way.
"Quick brown fox jumps
Thank you.
over the lazy dogs" on my fingers, on
I
the
like
sides of my
that.
fingers, because that's the way they used to display fonts. Like on
Yeah,
older
for
computers, they
sure.
used to display fonts
What
because
about
that's
QWERTY? Do you have anything that says
QWERTY. I don't
QWERTY?
have anything that says QWERTY. No. Are we live?
QWERTY.
Should I do this?
Okay, let's all wait till the people start coming in. I gotta watch the.
Oh, I hit the wrong fucking button.
Here we
Sadly,
go.
I don't know. None
They're
of us
they're
will
on now.
know.
Here we go. Here they're on now. Oh, hey everybody! Nice to see you here.
Ahoy,
Hi
friends.
there. Thanks for joining us.
That's us all. We're acting about
That's
like
like
we're.
that was like borderline NPR. It was like, hi guys.
Hey guys,
We're
what's
an NPR
up? I'm low energy
everyone.
Bob
Ahoy,
right now. I'm super
ahoy.
tired.
You're gonna perk up.
I don't know that.
You
I feel like
better.
you saw it hit me. I was like,
I did. Oh no, you were like, like,
up
oh,
since
the
5 in the
batteries were
morning.
lower than I thought.
Hey, Michelle says Michelle has arrived. That's good to
Oh,
know. Hey,
Michelle's
Michelle.
talking about Michelle on the third person.
Yeah.
Intriguing. I'd be one of
Bob,
those.
you know what? Bob has
days.
arrived too. Bob is tired, and I don't know. I mean, I know why. I didn't sleep much.
I didn't
I
either.
didn't sleep very
Actually, I
much either.
did. I slept 7 hours last night.
I didn't sleep worth a damn last night.
I slept just fine.
What's your
I don't
norm?
know.
What's each three of yours and everyone in the chat? What's your like ideal? Like your body kind of tells you what it wants. I feel like mine's 7.5.
7 hours.
Okay.
Well, I don't know that that's what it tells, but like I make a point to try to get 7 hours of sleep.
That's
every night.
different. I'm talking about like if your body could just do what it wanted. I usually, if I usually wake up.
Solid
If I don't
nine.
have an
You'll
alarm
sleep in.
set 7.5 hours, I'll wake up anyway. You know what I mean?
No.
I'm usually like you'll sleep in.
Mhm.
For me a sleep in, like if I'm like I have a rare Saturday morning with nothing going on, my internal clock will wake me up at usually by no later than 7 o'clock, which would be, at the most 8 hours.
Mhm.
But if it's like a weekend and I don't have to be awake, I do have the ability to get up, go pee, and then go back to bed for another hour. And then I'm like half sleeping. Like usually like Becky will be like messing with her phone or whatever, and I'm hearing stuff, but I'm just like fighting that I don't want to wake up.
Yeah.
I'm definitely in the 9 ballpark.
Oh, usually probably 8. I would say like when I wake up naturally, it's about 8 hours. And then I may
All right.
make myself.
I'm seeing
go back
9.
to sleep.
Ooh, Caroline needs 9. Oh no, Jennifer, you have COVID. I'm sorry.
Jennifer,
I hope
get
it's not
out of the
bad.
chat. You're going to give everybody
Get
COVID.
everybody infected,
Jeez.
Jennifer.
Sandra/Sandra.
At least come in wearing a
7.
mask.
7. I'm seeing a lot of 7s.
Yep.
9,
Kelly
9:30,
doesn't
5,
sleep at
5:30,
all.
that's
Kelly
about
doesn't even
8, right,
understand what
KH?
sleep is.
9. Warrior Princess says 23.5 hours.
Did you
I
know that
respect
Kelly
that.
is a known liar?
Zappis?
Oh no.
Mhm.
I did not know that.
I'm not getting into that. There
is
was
my
a
new
thing
thing.
about that on the follow.
This is my new thing.
Kelly,
I
I'm not. Yeah.
Was this something from the Facebook page?
I'm not cultivating a feud, a fun fake feud.
It's fun for me. It's fun for me.
Pee break.
Oh.
I always got to get a pee break in there for sure.
Something has
agreed.
happened to me since I've gotten older where I'm like a baby.
We know.
I cannot
We know.
sleep through the night.
Oh,
And
I thought
maybe
you were going to
because
say you can't make it more than 10 minutes without having to pee.
Yeah. But at night I used to be able to like go to bed. I mean, I do drink a lot of water, but it never I have not made it through an entire night in a year without getting up one time to go pee.
Oh, I don't think I have either.
You're a middle night peer?
I am, and part of it is like I definitely take supplements that you're supposed to take at night, and you have to drink a lot of water just to do that. So even if I do that at like 7, still that guarantees I'm going to wake up in the middle of the night minimum one time.
Every time. And I've like tried, and I think part of it because I drink so much water, I'm always thirsty. So I'm always like still drinking.
When's the last time you peed the bed?
I haven't peed the bed since I'm like 42.
Yeah, me too.
Mazel tov. Proud. I've never been more proud.
Listen, anybody who says that as an adult you haven't been dreaming that you were walking through the forest and you had to pee real bad and you finally found a tree and you just finally started to pee and then realized that it's not a dream and that you have started to pee.
Can we just make this podcast? I enjoyed those podcasts so much.
It's not TMI, Jennifer.
I definitely have
He asked
dreams
me.
where the dream evolves into me going to the bathroom, like me going into the bathroom of wherever I am to pee.
Yeah.
And then my brain is like, oh, there's a reason for this. This is not part of the plot of your dream. This is your body being like, wake up.
It's
Go
happened to
pee
me.
now.
I can think of a couple times since I've been an adult where like that has happened, and it's like not full on wet the bed, but you know,
Like,
a little something came out.
Yeah.
And that is the thing that snapped me out of my dream. Like, I shouldn't be feeling this. Should I? Like,
Women who have gone through pregnancy, I see you, I feel you, I understand that that is very much something that can happen when you are pregnant.
We got so my bird hunting trip this weekend. I had a 5-hour drive there and a 5-hour drive back, all over again. And throughout that drive consumed all of Patrick Hines' new book, and he tells a pretty hilarious story about him getting, and like I could relate to it so much. And it's essentially it's a situation where there's no reason he should have had to pee, got into a situation where he knew he couldn't pee, which immediately then made him have to pee.
Sure.
Yep.
Yes. Yeah, very relatable.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And that's how it was.
Well, Kaylin, I hope that you feel better. Jennifer, I'm glad that you're feeling better. Yeah, keep that normal cold feeling. It can be anything. It's just no one knows what getting COVID means anymore in terms of what their own body is going to do. It could be
I didn't even know it was
I
still a
felt like I
thing.
had light allergy. Yeah.
I may have had it.
It's
I was fighting like a sinus infection all weekend. And then someone told me that like this latest strain of COVID going around is basically like a sinus infection. I'm like, oh, did I have COVID?
Oh, I might have
Oh,
it. Then.
cool. Well, it's not like you were in a classroom full of young people.
No, I was up north hunting.
Oh, that's right.
But the little monsters in my classroom are probably the ones that gave it to me if that's what I had.
Well, that's also true.
Someone asked if me peeing the bed as a grown adult had to do with me drinking. Sadly, no. It was just literally my brain took where I had to pee real bad, and instead of telling me wake up, Bob, it was like, let's make a story.
Guess what's happening to me right now? Guess what I didn't need to do 10 minutes ago?
Do you got to take a Waz? God, there's Janet ruining the show for everyone.
Is that a washing machine she has in the back? What is that?
What? No,
this little circular thing back here.
You're seeing the.
I want you to know that I took my mouse and circled it with the mouse because.
Oh, I thought you were talking about her windscreen, but you're talking about the thing on the bottom right.
Yeah.
I bet it's a ring light. I bet that's a ring light.
That can't be that's huge.
I think it's a ring light not in use. We'll ask her when she comes back. People in the chat, if you see above the light blue thing in the bottom right hand corner of Janet's screen, I vote green ring light. Zach thinks that is a miniature washing machine.
I don't know what it is, to be honest. I just like to guess things in the background. Also, tell her to water a plant or something.
I feel like she's pretty good about water. I don't even see a plant.
Isn't that a plant right there above the washing machine?
No. I feel like that's a teapot.
No,
no, maybe it's an umbrella. It might be an umbrella. I'm also not wearing my glasses. So. The poop stories. Oh, I forgot about that when we did a whole episode on
Janet, we have some questions. We have some questions while you were gone.
Wait, okay, listen. Gentleman's bet.
Why is this still up on the screen? How do I take it?
It has been up there forever.
Yes.
Oh no.
Gentleman's bet. Zach, do you have a guess?
I don't know. I keep saying washing machine. I know it's not, but I think
over your left shoulder on the screen.
This right here?
Yeah, that circle. My vote is, I think, well, you just tell us, what is that circle?
It's an air purifier.
See, mine's closer.
Closer? You said it was a miniature washing machine.
It washes the air.
Ooh,
I thought it may be.
Point to Zach.
I thought it
I
may
don't disagree.
Be a ring light not in use. Now, above that and to the left.
Is that a plant?
Zach thinks that's a plant. I went teapot, which I'm not happy with my guess.
That's a plant.
That's a plant?
Well, what? This?
To the right, just a
like
little bit.
That?
Right there. That's the thing. Yeah.
That's a plant. Yeah. That's a potted plant.
Not a teapot. You're sure?
2 points for Zachary.
For sure it's not a teapot.
Yeah, Zach's doing very well. Interesting. He's a visual artist. The way he processes visual imagery, he's like putting it together. Tiny washing machine.
Not so much.
Try harder.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like a ring light is a better guess than a tiny washing machine.
No, it is. It's one of those. It looks like a ring light. It looks like a reverse ring light almost.
But it washes
where
the
like
air.
all the light, all the part around it, and then the ring part is dark. But it's just an air purifier. It's nothing really that interesting.
What does it do? What does it do?
But Los Angeles air is garbage. So
cleans the
we have
air in your room. like a machine that would wash something? Is that what
Yeah,
it does?
like an air washer. I'm gonna call it an
So
air
are you
washer
trying to
from
say
now
that
on.
what
I'm gonna say it's an air
what you meant
washer.
was what you call air purifiers
That's
is
what he meant.
washing machines.
Yeah, it's
An air
fine.
washer.
You know what? If
Yeah.
it gets me the point, I'll take it.
Yeah. You got
Oh.
it. You definitely got it. I already loved it and I'm sold.
Can we
I'm
start?
sold on it.
We should start.
Gabapentin for sleeping through the night. Oh, Vesna.
What does
Like GABA,
gabapentin do?
like yo GABA. No, that's different. But people say GABA. People say GABA when they mean gabapentin, right? They say it's short for that. They'll be like, "Oh, I just took GABA and it really worked."
But what is it? Because like I like will take some
like a
melatonin. I don't have a
supplement.
problem sleeping. I have a problem peeing. That's why I wake
like
up in the middle of the night.
CBD, but yeah.
And you can see it like in my when I look at like my sleep through the night, where it's like checking my heart rate through the night.
It's commonly used to treat epilepsy. So in case that is a problem for
So
you.
you can see that spike.
Yeah.
That's when I go pee.
Got it.
That's my heart rate, and it's like get up, go pee, and then but I go right back to sleep. Takes me 2 seconds to go right back to sleep. But just one time, I just want to go to sleep and stay asleep, and I never do.
Yeah. I can't tell. I feel like I know it hasn't happened because it would be a big deal. And I'd be like, I got to remember this. I slept through the night.
Oh,
I don't
when
know.
I got super fat, I was,
Oh, I see. Gotcha.
I would get up and pee many times through the night. And I feel like because I was borderline diabetic, because that will cause you to pee a lot through the night. And then I lost a bunch of
That's
weight.
what
Line,
everyone
that's my
thinks, yeah.
sleeping.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Just
That's
a
very nice,
blank
Zach.
screen.
Just black.
Yeah. And then like I lost a bunch of weight and like that stopped, but it like went to one time in the middle of the night. And then it's always that. Is weed legal in Michigan? Yes.
CBN
Yes, it
is great, Brooke. I guess that is what I'm taking. I mean, I'm taking like a hybrid of, I think it's CBD, CBN, and THC. That is, it doesn't make you high.
Listen, I just
soothes
gotta.
you,
I
makes you
don't want to be
sleep.
upside down anymore. That's all I know. Tired of being upside down.
Your
when I
upside
sleep.
down dreams. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Again, my issue is not
Oh,
the sleeping
fascinating.
part, it's the bladder part. Something's wrong with my bladder. Let's hit record. Room tone. How about a nice clap?
How about it?
1, 2, 3. And also with the super chat, Susan comes in to let us know that her brain makes up those stories too. And a couple of emojis that really capture the mood. Thank you, Susan, for the super chat. And I'm glad I'm not alone with that. Sorry, Brandon. I keep forgetting someone else is editing. Here we go. Sorry, Brandon. Zach's about to start his intro. You can start the show. 42 seconds of silence for the intro, and then Yahtzee.
Ahoy, friends. Thank you for tuning in to Truth and Justice. You are listening to the Friday follow-up. For part 4 of the murder of Jody Jones. Bob was once again joined by Dr. Sandra Lean, and they had an interesting conversation about the prosecution's case against Luke Mitchell. I personally have a lot of thoughts about this episode, and I know it's raised several listener questions. So today, Bob, Janet, and I are going to dive into all of them.
All right. Hello, listeners. Thanks for joining us today. Since you have a lot of thoughts, Zach, I say we just get right into your thoughts on the episode.
Okay. I'm going to preface this by saying I truly appreciate this episode. I've been enjoying having Dr. Sandra Lean on the episode, so you can have everything. I was honestly a little disappointed in this episode. There was a lot of things that were brought forth that I still think the problem is there's very bias in this case.
Mhm.
And that's all we continue to hear. There's a lot of things that Dr. Lean brought up that I think are good points. You know, the Adrena sighting kind of being bullshit after we kind of break it down.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's very valid. And I'm really happy to hear that. I think that's something that the prosecution has weighed a lot on going into this. And
Mhm.
as we hear more about what the person was seen wearing and how that's not at all what Jody was wearing and kind of the timeline. I mean, I think that was good to hear. The problems I had came in when she started to justify things throughout the prosecution's case. So at some point she starts talking about the changing stories. We talk about changing stories in Jody's family
Mm-hmm.
and how those seem to be sketchy and be a problem. But then when we get to the changing stories on Luke's family, there seems to be a reason why it's okay. And I feel like you can't have it both ways.
So I had a little different take on that, but what changing story on their side are you referring to specifically?
So on Jody's family, we have the changing story about
Well, I
about-
know all the stuff on her side, but I mean on
Okay.
Luke's side, what did you feel that she maybe
well, so
explained away?
there's the brother's story where he didn't know what was made for dinner, and we don't know if Luke was home. We don't know, and then he says that he calls and that he remembers that it was the night that he burnt the pie because his mother, and they said, well, that's because he just wasn't sure, and then there was 4 days, but it really wasn't 4, it was 1, and there's all these little justifications in it without, I mean, like, you can't have it both ways. If a party's changing a story, they're changing a story.
Okay,
I understand that.
yeah.
I'm sorry. I was going to say I completely understand what you're saying, Zach. I think part of the reason that and if it's biased, then it's biased. But not having a known reason for the other family to have changed stories, like she can't provide those reasons because it doesn't sound like they've been given.
Mm-hmm.
But she has access to the reasons that have been given because she is advocating for Luke. But you know what I mean? So she has that connection with them and they can say why. But I hear what you're saying. Bob, what were you going to say? Sorry about that.
I was just going to say that, I mean, I agree with both of you. I also, for me, like I see that a little bit differently. So like when you compare the two, so for example, Steven, I believe it was, like, gives a statement that, yeah, the dog was barking and alerting and it was standing there and its head was this high over the V, gives all these details about it, and then goes to trial and says the dog didn't alert at all. He's told a completely different story with no explanation as to how that changed. To me, the way that I took the way Dr. Lean was explaining, like, that particular change you're talking about in Luke's story, and I assume that's what you were talking about. So like you kind of, for you, it seems like you took it as like she's making an excuse that it seemed like 4 days, but it was really 2 days. What I heard was she was citing that, like, in the record, 2 days after the interview is when he called,
Mm-hmm.
and it was 2 days later when they called him back. That's just clearing the record to me. And it's also, I mean, I felt like she gave us all the details. It kind of leaves you to decide whether you're going to believe it or not. And the fact that he didn't change the story, he added detail to it, and she said that detail came because mom reminded him. So like mom told him it was when he burnt the pies, and then he said that he remembered it, and so then he called to add it that was the day that he burned his pies. To me, I just took it as like you can do with that what you want with it, but that is what is in the record, is that was his reason for changing it. I didn't take it as like explaining it away, but just giving us the details of the circumstance.
Fair enough. And what I will say, and I should have started with this as well, is when we came into this case, I was very undecided, and I probably leaned more towards guilt.
Mhm.
And as we've moved forward, honestly, I'm still undecided, but I definitely believe that I lean towards innocence. So everything I'm bringing up isn't because it's changed my mind. It's because I want to see a neutral playing field.
Yeah.
I want to see all the evidence as it sits, not as what we're being presented.
Yeah.
So that's a lot of everything that I come up with. I think there's a question about this, but I'm going to bring it up. She talks about the jury deliberation and how short it felt, that it was
Mhm.
about 5 hours.
Yeah.
But if we don't have to have a unanimous decision, we don't have to have a long deliberation, in my opinion.
Yeah. You just got to get 8 people to vote.
So if you go in there and talk for 5 hours and go, can we vote? And then you come to a vote and it's one way or the other, that's it. And that's the way it seems to me. Maybe I'm wrong.
Well, I think at least what I took out of it, her concern with that is, and again, as I mentioned, Zach, before we started recording, we recorded next week's episode where we go over the case for innocence 30 seconds after we recorded this interview. So I'm trying to, in my mind, keep stuff like separated from what we haven't talked about yet. But I think what I took out of it was the bigger concern for her, which kind of caught my attention too, was that on that Thursday night when they retired for the night, that they told the judge that they're nowhere near a verdict, and then they came in the next morning and immediately voted.
But they didn't. And she even said it in the podcast. Now, maybe she misspoke. Maybe I listened to this podcast 3 times to make sure that I was getting the details right. She said they deliberated for 2 hours, said they were nowhere near the verdict. They come back, then she says they come back and they almost immediately say that they have a verdict. So they were in there about 5 hours. Well, now that means they were in there for 3 more hours that second day.
Yeah, if that's what, and I'll take your word for it.
And that's what the word. And if she I don't know. I don't want to put it on her. I'm just saying that's if you listen to what she told you. She said they come back and almost immediately come up with the decision. So they were in there for about 5 hours, which means they spent 3 hours.
Did she say, or is my memory just mixing up, that it was within an hour the second day that they came? I thought I remember her saying it was an hour.
She does,
later.
but then she also says 5 hours.
Yeah, and I feel like I took, when she was breaking down the time from the day before, that there was like there was like a couple hours and then a dinner break and then 2 hours and then they sent them home and then they came back and then 1 hour. But
so that's not the way I took it. But I could.
You're probably
but
right.
I could be hearing it. That doesn't mean I heard it right either. I'm just bringing forth what I feel that I've heard through this podcast.
But the point being that to you that seemed like it was biased.
It does. Well, just presenting the fact that you go, it was a very short deliberation time, which means they didn't have time to think about it. But if you don't have to have a unanimous decision, they don't have to sit and argue about it for weeks on end.
Yeah, you got initially they didn't have 8 going either way, so that must mean, since it doesn't have to be unanimous. Now that I'm just thinking out loud as we're sitting here, that means there must have been a bunch of undecideds, right?
Yeah.
Because if everybody voted one way or the other, you would have a verdict right away, right? But since it wasn't, they said they were nowhere near a verdict at the end of Thursday night. There must have been a lot of people that were undecided. So that changes things a little bit too, because that means that you didn't have to go from innocent to guilty. You had to go from undecided to guilty, which is a shorter trip.
So the next point, I have several points that I'm going to go through here. My next point is the knife pouch. She talks about the knife pouch. It's been absolutely presented that this knife pouch appears. There's pictures of it. You can see pictures of it online. And the missing knife. Now, this is another part that I was a little unhappy with in the episode, because she kind of just talks past the knife. She does mention the knife is missing, but then she makes a big deal about the knife pouch and how it doesn't really mean anything. And maybe it doesn't. But in retrospect, that knife is missing. We don't know what happened to that knife.
Right. But what with the knife, the thing that sort of set my mind at ease with it was the medical examiner's testimony about the injury that was so deep in the throat that it was, and you guys couldn't see the video, but like the way she showed it to me in the video on Zoom was that they literally would have had to been holding, like, with just the fingers, the tip of the knife, in order to get it that deep, and fingers would have to be in mouth for the blade to be that deep.
So I would like to see how that really went down, because again, there is different ideas about this. You're talking about, she says that her tonsils were injured, is what the injury is called. There was a cut to her tonsils, is I believe what she says, right?
Yeah.
Yes. If you're going directly in her mouth, there's probably no way to get there. But they also say she has an injury that her lip is cut all the way to her ear, which means that shortens that path by a whole lot. If the injury is,
if that goes all the way through.
Yeah.
I don't know. I was only basing that off what she said that the expert testified to.
Again, I don't know. This is what I'm saying. Is it's not that I believe that this was done this way. It's that I wanted to see this evidence presented this way, just in an unbiased thing, so I can see truly what's happening and not just having things talked away.
Yeah. I'll just say this in regards to that. Like, I think it's unfair to call it bias the way that it's presented if what she said is accurate, which I'm not saying anybody refute it. I don't know if anybody can, because I don't know if I've seen
absolutely.
it. Like it's just the way it's kind of like the way you're presenting is she was biased. She was spinning it and talking around it. The way I heard it was, she said the expert on the stand testified that the only way that knife could have made that injury is if this happened. To me, that's just her sharing a fact from what was testified to. And it just seems unfair to me to and of course I'm very sensitive to this, because what do I get called all the time?
You get called bias,
right? Yeah. So I admittedly I'm very sensitive to that, to her coming on and breaking those elements down of the case, and then having somebody then say it was biased the way she presented it. To me, it would be biased to me if that's not actually what the expert said, and I don't know, right? We're taking her word for it.
Yeah. So and I guess I apologize, because maybe bias isn't really what I'm going for. What I mean is, the way it was presented was that you bring up this knife pouch, you talk about this knife pouch, you kind of have a discussion about this knife pouch, and then when it gets to the knife is missing. The pathologist says, yeah, it could have created these wounds, but maybe it could have, maybe it couldn't have, and that's the end of discussion. There's still, where is that knife?
Right.
That's still in my head. Why is it there? Why is it gone? Where is it? What's happened to it?
And I think that's a question that we still have that's out there, right? Is she can't answer that. and we can't answer that. We don't know where the knife is,
Okay.
and I don't know, and we didn't get an explanation for it. Neither did the jury or the defense. So that just kind of lays out there. I do think that at the very beginning of, I'm anxious for you to hear this week's episode, because at the very beginning, I think you're going to be very happy with her response to my very first question. I'll
Okay.
leave it at that.
Good. And so my next point is the smoke. She talked about the smoke, how she said that there was the possibility that Luke's mom lit a fire to burn the clothes, but no one could report that there was smoke. She said there's 37 neighbors. Out of the 37 neighbors, 35 of them said they did not see any, they could not recall seeing any, or they just remember smelling something. And then she says, so that means there's only one neighbor that said anything, and that's the direct neighbor. But if they say there's smoke there all the time, how can you concede that that's true?
Yeah, and again, to me, that's,
I'm not saying that's,
maybe the way she presented it was a way which said they're down to 30. I thought it was about 35 that said they didn't recall or didn't say there was a fire or smoke. There was 2, right, that said they did smell smoke. That were both close neighbors. One said it smelled normal, and the other one said it smelled.
But she does
odd.
state that she states in there that there's these little bonfires all the time.
Right.
So again, I think that's hard to say that. I don't believe the clothes were burned. I'll say that right away. I don't believe the clothes were burned. I'm really starting to lean that I believe Luke is innocent. However, to represent that only one neighbor, one neighbor could positively ID smoke, but that doesn't mean that other people couldn't.
Right. But I guess I would say this. How do you... This is like the first time ever Janet's quiet, and me and Zach are having back and forth.
Why?
Yeah.
Because I'm like, oh, Brandon's editing this. I don't want to crosstalk. I'm not going to interrupt. I'll just let them run out till the end.
Yeah. So what I was going to say is, if what she said is accurate, right? That there were 37 neighbors interviewed, 35 of them said they couldn't recall any smoke. 2 said they smelled smoke. 1 said it smelled like normal wood, and the other one said that it smelled odd. How should she have presented that differently if that's the actual facts of the case file?
I don't know how you present it, but what I guess what I'm getting at is I feel like I don't believe that maybe I'm wrong when I say this. I think she said 35 people said they didn't say there was a fire, they couldn't recall if there was a fire, or it was normal to smell smoke.
No, it was 30, and somebody can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe she said there was, all the neighbors were interviewed. 35 of them said there either wasn't a fire, or they said they don't recall there being a fire from the direct interview. There was 2 neighbors that said they did recall smelling smoke. They didn't see a fire, but they recalled smelling smoke that night. One of them said it smelled normal, and then the other one said that it had an odd smell to it.
Okay. Yeah, so fair enough, and I very well could have taken that wrong. I'm very open to saying that I took it wrong. That's just the way it was the way that I felt it was presented was like only one person said they smelled smoke. So how could that be true?
How could it be? Oh, the only one?
Yes.
Meaning you kind of took it like maybe they didn't like talk to all the other people?
No, I the way I mean it was the prosecution put forth that the clothing was burnt. Right, which I don't believe is the case. They never find any evidence that it was burnt.
But we didn't talk about this, but they did search her.
They did,
and there was no evidence.
And there was no evidence of being burnt.
No zippers, no nothing.
No nothing. I feel like we're just talking in circles on this, but
we should move on.
Okay.
But I think we both made our positions on it clear.
Here's what I'd like to say, if I may. Zach, you are perhaps accustomed to, as many of us are, and Bob said it at the beginning of the episode. And if I'm remembering correctly, Bob, you said, Dr. Lean, let's try to look at today's episode as this was the case presented by the prosecution and just sort of talk about it as from their perspective, what there was. And you have done that in past seasons with past episodes where it's just you're not joined by anybody, and you have written a script and you go through and really try to be as fact-based as you can and really almost try to sell us on the prosecution's case. And so you did say that, or some version of that, at the beginning of this episode. And then I think what Zach heard instead of it being the sort of standard version we would hear from you, where you really are like, I am going to present this so you have all of the information, and I'm not going to, I'm going to reserve judgment on any of these pieces of information, because we will get back into those things. And Dr. Lean is asking her to do that, to really present it like she's the prosecution and she's going to walk you through their case without expressing an opinion. I don't think that's fair to her. I don't think it's fair for us to expect her to do that. She has been advocating so hard for this family for so long, and she has felt so alone in that for so long, from what I perceive of, things she said and things I've read, that asking her to just state a fact and kind of leave it there, I don't know if I could do that if I were her. And so I think it's impossible almost for her not to say, but this, and this, because that's just... So I guess what I want to say is it bias? Yeah, I think it is biased, because we have invited someone on who is very sure that this young man is innocent. So we don't have to pretend like she hasn't made up her mind yet. We know she has, and she's looking at the facts through that lens, because that's what she has made, she has purposefully done that to try to undo this perceived misjustice. So I feel like I guess what I'm saying is I feel like you're both right, but I understand, Zach, the idea, and you tell me if I'm interpreting that right, is that it's true, we did not get the sort of thing that Bob does where he just lays it all out and it's clean and you walk away and go, okay, that was that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head.
Yeah, and it was tricky too for her, because I'm asking her to, she is the one, the holder of the facts.
Right.
We don't have the transcript. So I'm asking her for the prosecution's case. Because, you're going to hear next week, like, she was just kind of pointing out the flaws in the prosecution's case, which, as you said, Janet, and Zach, is kind of where normally I don't do that when I do the prosecution's case. I just say, this is how they did it. And then I come back and go, and then this is why that stuff was wrong. The episode on the innocence is a whole different ball of wax. That's a completely different set of circumstances. Because to be honest with you, when I was doing the interview, like, I was like, but here we are kind of arguing against these things, or not really arguing against them, because I still maintain that it's not a bias to state the other facts that were in the record to give better context of it. But at the same time, that's saying, well, this is what they did. For example, the Adrena sighting, right? So they're like, well, one of the main stanchions of their case was this Adrena sighting. Also, what came out in trial is that, this happened. And then, of course, some of it's my fault, because then I'm like, well, how did the time change? And you heard that, because I think you probably caught when I was listening to it. I was like, wait, you mean 5 to 5, right?
Yeah.
She's like, no, 5 to 6. I'm like, huh? And I remember thinking in that moment, okay, we're supposed to just let that slide, but I can't let that slide. I need to understand how this is. But that do you have any more points that you want to cover before we go to the questions?
So two quick ones that I won't stay on a super long time. One was when they talk about the jacket. We have no idea about the jacket, whether he had one or did not have one.
Right.
But there's this notion that she puts forth that says that the police took a jacket from a former classmate in 2022 to hide it from the defense.
No, they found out about it in 2022 is what she said. And again, I don't know if it's true, but that from what she said,
okay,
that she said they didn't discover. So to me, that sounds like there was like something in the file that they had taken this other jacket and didn't disclose it to the defense, and they discovered that in 2022.
Okay, so I'm totally misunderstood that.
But that sure would be weird if they hit.
That's why I was
19 years later.
That's why I was super confused, because I was like, what? Why are they taking what? Okay. And then the last thing was the note of like the liaison that like was with them all the time.
Yeah.
And again, I think that the whole idea that Marilyn Manson or the Black Dahlia, I think that is so far rubbish to this entire case that doesn't matter. But the idea that there's a note made that Luke brought up this song, but then the liaison officer brought up the song, and you can tell by the notes, but she wrote it in the note. Like, how do we know any of that?
Yeah, I don't know. And that's and a lot of that comes back to, I wish we had the actual case file,
because that seems confusing, because she said in her notes she wrote this, but then if you check her notes, she wrote this, and you're like, well, what is her note? Like, I don't understand that. Again, it doesn't mean anything. And honestly, I feel like I've harped on her. I absolutely love that Dr. Sandraline has been on this podcast. She's a wealth of information I did not know. I'm super happy that you've got her. I just think that I was disappointed, and Janet hit it on the head, that it wasn't presented the way that I was used to having it presented.
Yeah.
And I think I'm probably not the only listener that felt that way.
Yeah. All right. And with
Yeah,
that,
absolutely.
I bet Janet has a bunch of questions.
We have some
Wait a
questions.
minute. Wait, I'm sorry.
Oh, what did I think?
I'm going to fix this for Brandon. And with that, Janet, did you have anything else to add about the episode before we get into the questions?
I just have these 5 points. No, I'm kidding. I loved everything you brought up, Zach, and some of that stuff I had questions about as well. So thank you for bringing that to all of our attention, because it was that was all really good stuff to talk about. We do have some questions, and we also have some questions that are unrelated to this case, but we will save them for the end. So first of all, circling back to the people are still thinking about the "we called an hour ago" comment, and Tracy just wanted to volunteer the idea of "we called an hour ago." Could the police, could the "we call an hour ago" comment to police line up time-wise to the 999 call from someone claiming to be Jody's mom? Could the dispatcher been mistaken about who made the call? So many J names, maybe a mistake in the notes or report.
I mean, I think anything's possible with that. I think as far as it does the timing line up, let me see. That would have been around mid. Yeah, it probably would. It would be about right that they called an hour before that. But I don't know that that's what happened.
Brandon's he's gonna be annoyed that I'm not fixing this typo that's in the actual copy. So Brandon, I'm doing this for you right now, so you don't ask me to record it later as a pickup. Let me just read. Could the dispatcher have been mistaken about who made the call? There you go.
That's for him to edit in later.
Nice, clean sentence. Okay, so let's move on to Jennifer. Jennifer says, does Scotland and the UK have a law about self-incrimination? It seems like Luke didn't do himself any favors by not shutting the heck up around police.
I don't know. I mean, you heard me learning in real time some of the way the Scottish law works. So I don't know the answer to that, but also I don't think that's necessarily true. I don't think that it sounded like there was really anything that Luke said that was used against him in court.
Yeah, I don't think so either. From everything I've heard, I don't think there was a lot. I think he was held in question, but I don't think there was anything that incriminated himself in it at any point.
And I know I asked Dr. Lean that question. I don't remember. It probably must not have been in this episode, must be in the next one. But I think I'd asked, like, in the 6 hours that he was interviewed, or however long it was, did he say anything that was used, that was like incriminating, that was used against him? And she said, no, nothing.
But just to put a fine point on it, still, don't say anything. Ask for an attorney, whether or not you think you're going to incriminate yourself or not. And you never know how the police are interpreting something. Just because they couldn't put something in front of the jury to say, and look what he himself said, doesn't mean that they weren't all passing judgments and gossiping behind his back about certain things he said, or the cadence in which he said it, or the tone he was using, or the way he was behaving, and then he didn't seem upset enough, and all of that kind of stuff. Whether or not that's used as direct evidence, you could see that influencing the police to look a certain direction and maybe not look a different direction. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Jesse says, hopefully this is covered in the case for innocence, but how much of the conduct of the police and trial was just standard for the Scottish justice system? Clearly the systems are different, so it's difficult to tell which is accepted practice and which isn't.
From my conversations with Dr. Lean, a lot of this was out of the norm. I can't say that I fully understood exactly what she was explaining as far as the interview, but so, like, one big difference is that they're able to, I don't remember the term she used, but to interview people, and they do not have a right to an attorney or a parent. So, like, we went through this with Jennifer Jeffley's case, where we all learned, most of us, shockingly, that the police do not have to have a parent present for a minor to be interviewed, which was shocking and scary.
Mm-hmm.
But even with that, what they do have the right to do is to leave or have an attorney present. The fact that they're able to interview people for up to, what does she say, up to 7 hours?
Something like that, yeah.
Up to 7 hours, and they're not entitled to legal representation or a parent being present.
And I think there's something about how Luke was obviously considered a suspect But
Yeah.
if they don't make him a quote unquote suspect, if he is like a witness, they're allowed to question him.
Right. Well,
I
that's
think there
the
was
same
some-
in American law.
Okay. And I think that's where they got around that whole loop. That whole idea was they were presenting him as not a suspect.
Yeah, that's the same bullshit that we see here. Like we saw with Jennifer Jeffley, again, to go
Mhm.
back to that case, was, if you're just giving a witness interview, they don't, you can always walk away, you can always not speak, and you can always ask for an attorney and stop any questions to have an attorney. You're not required to be informed of those rights in America unless you are a suspect. Then they have to Mirandize you and make sure you are aware of the rights. Like with Jennifer, they're questioning her all this time, and they're literally having her sign confessions and still claiming that she's not a suspect, because then she doesn't have to have an attorney. And then they're able, of course, because she's a kid, just like Luke was a kid, they're able to, well, you can have an attorney, but you don't want to do that, right? Oh, no, of course I don't. Why would I do that? You're just helping me.
Yeah, Abby had a similar question to what you were talking about, Zach, which is, again, I kind of group these big picture questions together for those of our listeners who are articulating what I think a lot of us are feeling, which is this curiosity and confusion around the difference in the justice system. So Abby was very curious about how jury deliberations are done in a place like Scotland, where juries don't have to be unanimous. I'm sure I'm missing something, she says, but it would seem like they just have to do one vote.
Yeah, and I think that's what we were talking about a little bit earlier, that, like I said, kind of came to me in the moment here, that I think they have to do one vote unless you have undecided people. That's the only thing that makes sense. Because again, like otherwise, the minute you walk out and say, well, what do you guys vote? And there's 8 yays and 7 nays, that's it. It's over. So there has to, in order for there to be more than just one vote right after they're done, there has to be undecided people.
Yeah, I'd be curious to see what like the average time is on a deliberation for a trial there, because like here it seems like if there's murder trials there, the deliberations can be super long days.
Yeah,
but I wonder what it is over there because of this.
Yeah, because when you see, because of initially from an American's perspective, when you see it was a 42-day trial and they deliberated for 5 hours,
that seems shocking.
Yeah, that's shocking. But yeah, when you come to the fact that all you have to do is just get everybody to vote, it doesn't like anything, then that's the end of it.
And how do you guys feel about that on a personal level? I mean, we've talked about challenges that we feel that our American jurists, the face when you can be pressured by a judge that you have to come to a decision by a certain point or you're not going to get to go home, or, that there can be sort of bully type behavior in a jury room where you feel, you've spoken to jurors who felt like they had to say guilty because they felt the pressure was so strong. But how do you feel about this when it's on the other side? Zach, what do you think? If it's, a bunch of people and just a little over half think you're guilty and that sends you away.
Yeah, that seems crazy to me, that just a straight majority is enough to convict you. I don't know what it would be. I don't, I feel like unanimous seems the right way, but I just don't know. It seems just straight minority, like you said, 8 to 7 that can send you away for the rest of your life seems ridiculous. Seems like they would have like at least a higher majority of some, like a 75% majority or something.
Yeah,
if they're going to do it that way. But
to me, honestly, going through this case made me feel a lot better about the American system. So
that tends to happen, I think.
Bananas. Now on the flip side of it, in sentencing generally, I like the UK system better than here, where people do have a chance to reform and get out. It's not lock them up and throw away the key like it is here. And there are certainly all the issues with our system that, like you mentioned, Janet, the pressures they put on, the Allen charges, just generally jurors, I think, not fully understanding the law. And I'm basing that off my own experience on juries and having people like, well, I just don't think that he should be charged with that. I'm like, but do you think he did that? Yes. Well, then you vote guilty. But the sentence is 5 years, and I think that's too much. I'm like, you don't get to decide. Like there's a lack of understanding. But I will say that I will take our broken unanimous system over that simple majority system. That's nuts to me.
Yeah, I want to read Susan in the chat just posted. These legal differences reflect different social norms and general understandings of fairness. The influence of social norms and groupthink cannot be overstated. And that's really well said.
Yeah.
Oh, and Susan would be happy to discuss the research surrounding the influence of these social norms on juror perceptions. I smell an upcoming episode.
Ooh, that may be a
I
good
would
follow-up
love
sometime.
to. Yeah, that would be a really cool conversation. So let's offline about that and come back around to it. Lynn says, I wonder how Dr. Lean came to a realization that there was a grave misjustice when all sources of information at the time seemed to only consider Luke as guilty. She said it fueled her decision to make criminal justice her career. Did she reveal her aha moment when she was convinced police wrongly targeted Luke?
From the way, I mean, she talked about that last week, and the way I took it was the fact that everybody was saying that this 14-year-old boy did this was what got her interested. I think so that's what was concerning to her was, and that was, as she said, like she was not an expert in this. She had no, but she was a psychology, her degrees were in psychology, so she knew, had some experience in things like this, I guess I would say. But it sounded like that was the thing that got her interested, was she was just like, wait, what? A 14-year-old boy did this? And then because of that, and I think and I may be speaking out of turn here because I'm putting words in her mouth, but kind of based on like she said, like Luke's mom put a note under her door and was, just looking for help. It felt to me like everybody was persecuting Luke. The newspapers, the news, everybody in town was already had their mind made up that Luke did it. And then she heard, well, there's this one woman that is like actually, this educated woman who is saying like, this doesn't make sense to me, that it could have been in desperation that she's like, well, someone help me. No one is taking our side. Someone help me. And maybe that's how they got connected. But that was my understanding, was it was simply because based on what she knew about the case from the news and stuff, it just seemed incredibly unlikely to her that a 14-year-old boy would be responsible for it.
Got it. Jeannie says, please ask Dr. Lean if you can play the recording Luke made from jail recently. And Muri also asked about whether Luke could be interviewed now, since an interview with him is apparently out there anyway.
There's probably some serious hoops to try to jump through for me to interview him now. I don't know if that would be possible. I may try to see if that is. As far as the footage that's out there, no. I can tell you the answer is no, just because, and Janet, you know this just from how production works. There is a production company somewhere that owns that footage, and they don't just give it away to be played on a podcast somewhere. That's just not a thing. So it's not like that footage, like Dr. Lean doesn't own that footage. Some production company owns it.
Got it. And then Muri also says, from the documentary, it seems Luke's mother would benefit from financial support. Is she doing better? And if not, is there any way to donate to help? So we haven't really talked much about the documentary that's out there. I'm not sure how much. I think you mentioned in an early episode, as you were kind of introducing us to the case, that that perhaps Luke's mom is not in a great position financially because of all of this. But is there anything you want to add to that now?
I as far as I know, she's still in pretty bad shape as far as financially in her living situation. So at the end of the second episode, I asked, and I will tell you this, that after listening to Dr. Lean in the episode that's coming this week in 2 days, I'm fully, and again, I'll preface this by saying that this is based on my assumption that the evidence and information that Dr. Lean is sharing is accurate. I have no reason to believe it's not. I'm fully convinced that Luke is in fact innocent. Enough so that when we were done recording, I asked her, like, is there a way like we can donate to his defense or anything? Is there any way that our listeners can help? And she said that there is law in Scotland that you cannot donate money to someone who is in prison, or it sounds like anything surrounding them. Even she said, like, there was fundraising that people were doing for her work, like just raising money for Dr. Lean for her work to like write the book and stuff. And she was using some of that money to help fund some of his defense. and the fundraiser was removed and she got in trouble for it. I don't know exactly what she
Wow.
got in trouble. Like you can't raise money for it. So she's like, I would love to, I would love to like give you some way that you can help with Luke or his mom or anything financially, but you just can't. So what I will say is this, and I'll put it in this episode description too. I put it in last week's episode description. The link to buy Dr. Lean's book on Amazon. If you're interested in the case and you believe Luke's innocent and you want to help in some way, buying Dr. Lean's book, Innocence, with a TS at the end, not CE at the end, Innocence Betrayed, on Amazon. And again, there'll be a link in the description. That is a way that you can help.
I have so many questions about all of that, and I'm just going to save them, and we're just going to find an expert in the Scottish legal system. I have a lot of thoughts, some of which I feel like I understand some reasoning behind stuff, but I just have so many questions. So we'll just table that for now.
Well, I'll say this, because I was feeling the same way as you are when I heard it. And that was, and I think I vocalized this in one of these episodes, that where's when I said that I felt better about the American system, it's because where's the accountability?
Mm-hmm.
Like they can go in, if there is, like, let's not even talk about this case. If there is a crooked prosecutor out there or crooked detectives out there that are going after somebody that is in fact innocent, and they are breaking the rules and they're lying and they're twisting facts to get their conviction, you can't get the transcripts. You can't get the police files. If you're working for the defense, you can have the police files, but you're not allowed to share them anywhere. The transcripts are so expensive that you can't get them. You can't raise any money for somebody to have an attorney to help fight their conviction. Like, there is no accountability at all. And I do not like that at all. It's like, what can we do from here? But I'm just like, something's got to change. This is not okay. This is not okay that you can lock up a 14-year-old kid for the rest of his life and no one's allowed to know how.
Yeah, it's chilling.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I'm sorry. I'm just looking at this. I'm trying to figure out. So just going back to Andrina, who we talked about a little bit earlier and is definitely discussed in the episode. Kim says, I didn't want to skip ahead, which is why I was dropping heavy hints with my question about Andrina Bryson's timing. That's a reference to a previous question. Brandon, you can delete that. Sorry, I said it out loud. Per Dr. Lean's comments, Kim says, I believe Andrina originally said she went to the supermarket and then drove around to see the house and then made the sighting on her way home. This means whoever she saw, they were at the opposite end of the path to sightings of Luke at that time, so he was alibied. Without her, is there any evidence at all that puts Luke with Jody?
No, with her, there's no evidence that puts Luke with Jody. I mean, she never said, I saw Luke and Jody. She said, I saw a couple. I didn't see the woman's face. Described her wearing clothing that Jody wasn't wearing. And described the male as, late teens, early 20s, which, whatever, it could 14, that could maybe fall into that category. But that was it. So I mean, let's be clear. This case is flimsy at best.
At best.
And I think that whether you think he's innocent or guilty, you have to admit this is a flimsy case. Your entirety of your evidence is based on somewhat. Forget the fact that it seems to me, based on what Dr. Lean told us, that Andrina absolutely did not see Luke and Jody. I mean, everything she described is not Luke and Jody. But let's just say that it's just not confirmed. She just saw somebody that's the case. And there's a knife that's missing. Do we like you mentioned, the knife is missing, but also the knife is missing. You don't have here's a knife with the blood and all this on it. We have no forensic evidence of Luke being on the scene. Like no one ever puts Luke with Jody that night. No one.
Well, and I said it when we first started this, when I believed that, when I was leaning towards guilt. I wouldn't say I would believe guilt, but when I was leaning towards guilt, I even said it then that I was like, even if I do think he did this, this is not a fair trial. This is a horrible trial. There's no way that they should have convicted him based on what was presented.
Yeah, and for me, it's more than just a fair trial, because generally I look at, and I think you have a question about this. I'll hold off on it, but on that what I was about to say. But generally speaking, I'm not looking at the fairness of a trial. I'm not a lawyer, right?
Mhm.
I'm looking at, like, practically speaking, is this person factually innocent? Do I think as an investigator that this person is innocent? So for me, just looking at, like, practically speaking, besides whether the trial was fair or not, it's flimsy. If you take everything at face value that the prosecution put up, it's still flimsy.
Mhm.
And that's pretty damn scary to me. That, it's like if anyway, I'm gonna go on and on and on. But to me, it's a flimsy case.
Agreed. And I think, yeah, Kim was sort of saying, because we keep circling around this idea of what points the state was attacking. What are the little legs of their table that they're setting all of this on? And that one of them was that he had no alibi, and that there were these sightings. And so I think many people are just struck by exactly what you just said, which is,
Yeah.
well, it doesn't sound like those legs existed at all. How could the jury have even considered that? It sure would be nice to know how the jury came to the decision that they did, who voted, and what influenced them. Doesn't sound like we have that information either.
Here's a Colin Miller analogy for you. It's like the state's case is a granite countertop, and it's being held up by three legs, and the three legs are paper towel rolls.
You were so close. I just need you to say, many people remember the 1979 movie A Granite Countertop.
Should have been a
in which
movie,
Al
right?
Pacino played
As
a
I got through the
grouter
mic.
who...
That is, and I'd like to formally right now apologize to Colin Miller for even suggesting that my silly analogy was anything compared to something that he might put up.
Mhm.
But that's how it feels to me. It's like, yeah, the state's case has three legs, and they're cardboard paper towel rolls trying to hold up a 1,000-pound countertop.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, that is what I have for today for that particular case. We just have a couple of other things to touch briefly on. A very quick question about Obsess Fest that I want to get answered for Kelly. Kelly says, we did, because it was announced that we would be doing a Friday follow-up at Obsess Fest, does that mean that people will not get to hear it? Is it going to be related to this case? And I'd love for you to just clarify that, so no one is worried that they're going to be missing something key if they're not there live.
That's a great question. We have not. We don't know what we're doing. The kind of what we plan on doing is kind of just putting out kind of an Ask Me Anything type of fun follow-up. I believe that we'll be able to get that recording, and we will so whatever said, we will definitely publish it. Definitely assuming that we're able to get the audio recording, which I believe we will be able to. I don't think in that setting that it will be like a hard hitting anything about any particular case. I suspect, knowing that group, that there will be probably a lot of Adnan questions, I would guess, because that that group is not all. These are true crime obsessed people. Obviously, there are definitely a lot of truth and justice people there too, but everybody in both of those groups is obsessed with the Adnan Syed case. So it'll be whatever comes up, but it's going to be, the plan is for it to be kind of a fun follow up, and we will, as long as we can, we will publish it.
Great. Just turning to the Pinion Pines case for a moment, Valeria says, could you explain a bit about the appeal documents that were filed recently for Robert? And Mary Ellen had the same question. Do you have anything you can share with us on that?
Not specifically yet, because I have not. Someone last week during our recording, 1 second. Sorry, Brandon. I'll be with you in just a minute here. Okay. Let me retake that. Not specifically, because so last week someone mentioned on here that it was filed. I didn't even know that it was filed yet. I have it. I have not had the time yet to fully read it and break it down, so I can't right now tell you anything specific about it. My intention is, so next week will be the last episode about Luke's case. We're going to do the case for innocence. I was thinking maybe we might do something else after that, but I was thinking of like alternate suspects, but we kind of get into that in next week's episode. So we said it would probably be a 6-part series on the case, and that looks like that's what it's going to be, is just to kind of give some exposure to the case. Then the next episode, what I want to do is actually go through the appeal and break that down. and this is, and it's some, there's always the usual suspects that are going around like, oh, look, Bob, they didn't use your arguments in their appeal. Like, okay, no shit. I'm not a lawyer. As I just mentioned, I'm looking at the things to trying to investigate the case and figure out what's practical. Also, those are the same people that are like, Bob's in bed with the attorneys and he's biased. Like, clearly not. I'm not. I never was working with the attorneys. I sent them the information I had and they did their thing. I suspect, just based on the trolling comments that I've gotten about it, that, and I think somebody even said that they didn't put the like the sector data information into this appeal, and I believe this is the federal appeal also. So I gotta go through and verify that, because again, like, I have not opened the file and read it yet because I've been busy doing other stuff. But if that's the case, if it's a federal appeal, then nothing we covered would be in it, because the federal appeal would be appealing the previous state appeal ruling that happened before we were covering the case. So they can't argue new stuff. They can only argue that stuff. So I don't know. But anything that's in there is going to be, lawyers have to decide what is going to be a good argument, a winning argument. It's not about, at this stage, it's not about proving innocence, an actual innocence exoneration without like a clear DNA match is almost impossible in the United States. Like, you got to have something very, very strong. You have to literally beat every element of the state's case. So coming at them with, well, we have an expert that says that the sector data actually shows they were in this place, as we talked about on the episode. If you assume that everything I said is 100% right about where they were, it still leaves a window where they could have circled back, and it doesn't exonerate them. So I wouldn't expect it to be a part of this appeal. Like, I would imagine most attorneys wouldn't even go down that road, because saying that at 7:10 they had driven past the road to Becky's house doesn't prove their innocence. Now, for us on a practical level, we can see, well, yeah, but the sector data seems to track right with what they said, and it shows they were going back up there, but we still have that, that chunk of time where there could have been a circle back or something like that. So, but anyway, to answer your question, that's so the plan moving forward is, we said we're going to do the 6-part series on Luke's case. We're about to wrap that up. I'm going to do an episode on the appeal that was filed, so we can kind of break down that as an update on season 12. And then we're going to start moving the Adnan Syed series onto the public feed, as I said. So there'll be, if you're a patron, we're going to continue on with where we're going. So we'll be at episode 8 or 9 by then, and we'll be continuing on with the series. If you're not a patron, we'll come back. Obviously, you guys have already heard episode 1. So it'll be episode 2 of that will be coming on the feed, and then we'll be releasing them simultaneously as we move forward. There's something else I was going to say about that. One second. Sorry, Brandon. Oh, I was going to say. And along those lines, because there seems to be a lot of interest where people want to hear that rebuttal of the prosecutor's case. That is probably what I'm going to do is create in our distribution platform a season 14 and put them, because it's going to be big. So like, one of their episodes, they did 14 episodes. One of their episodes already took me 2 episodes to break down. So there'll be at least 15 of mine. And actually this week, as long as things go as planned, there's going to be 2 for this week also. So there'll be at least 16. So I'll probably will make season 14 is the reply brief series. It won't have any effect on you guys. This will just drop in your feed like normal. But what it'll do is, for anybody that wants to come hear it, they can just go listen to season 14 and listen to it all. So in doing that, and I'll warn you guys about this again before it happens, but you'll probably notice like 2 episodes get popped in at a weird day before the new one comes out. And that'll just be because even though we've already done season 1 on the main feed, it was way back, month and a half ago on this feed. So I'll put that episode 1 out again. So it's just clean all in one season. You'll have already heard that. It won't be like the Sunday drop. It'll just get like dropped in there extra. So
Got it.
That is the plan going forward. This week we are on the Adnan Syed reply brief series on Patreon. They talked about, in their part 6 that we'll be talking about, is the Asia McClain alibi letters, the autopsy, and the crime scene. And on our main feed here, coming out 2 days on Sunday, we have another episode with Dr. Lean, where she is going to explain the case for innocence for Luke Mitchell and give all the information that we have about any alternate suspects and where the case is now and what's going to be happening next.
And I just want to shout out Grayson very briefly, who just informed all of us, this is why we love the live YouTube chat when we do these live streams, that it has now been released that the Maryland Supreme Court will be hearing the plea on Thursday. It will hear appeals from the victim's family, from Hayes' family, as well as Adnan, and it may even be live streaming, but they are going to hear it out, and that will have happened by the time this episode drops. If you're not hearing our live,
when is it going to be heard? It's going to happen that fast. This Thursday.
Mm-hmm.
Great. Also, along those lines, last thing, and we're going to wrap this thing up. When we talked about when Adnan did his press conference, I didn't realize something that came out then, and then I think Adnan said it during the press conference, but then it came out subsequent to that. One of the big kind of bombshells that came out there is, so you remember when Mosby exonerated Adnan, one of the reasons was this Brady violation that Urich had in his notes that somebody had called and said that, I'm paraphrasing, but something along the lines of that they were going to kill Hay. And so some caller called to tell them that this person had said that. Urich then came out later and said they completely misrepresented that, and that caller was talking about Adnan. And what then came out was that no, he was not talking about Adnan. According to the defense, the person that made that phone call has come forward and said that was them, and has written an affidavit explaining exactly what they said in that call and how they absolutely were talking about someone else and not Adnan. So apparently that is coming out. I don't know when, but in this case. So another hit against Urich, if that person, I don't know why they would be lying, but if that person came out and said is true that they were the ones that made the call, and Urich is once again lying to cover his own tracks. So we'll be anxious to see how all that plays out. And with that, let's go ahead and wrap this thing up. Thank you guys for listening. Thanks for tuning in. All you patrons, thank you for subscribing. And we'll see you guys next week.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye, guys.
All right, let's stop on the audio ski.
Man. Grayson, thank you so much. I had not seen that. That news is very fresh.
I did that too big.
There was a couple of super chats here. Danielle said, wish I had something witty to say. I'm just not that funny. As always, love you guys. What you do? Family time. Got to go. Bye. Smartless podcast reference. Thanks, Danielle, who's gone, but thanks. And Kelly, thank you for the super chat. Says, Bob, could you do a Zoom on Thursday so that we can all stress together? Also, this afternoon, I forwarded you the email that needs a response, all caps in red. I did see it. I'm going to email you back, Kelly, because I got it, but I don't know who, unless I missed something, I don't know who that person is. But I may have missed something, but I'll email you back and get that squared away. As far as the Zoom, probably not. So Thursday, I will be editing in the morning. I'll be teaching in the afternoon. I have a 1 hour break. And then Thursday, I have, get this, parent teacher conferences that I have to be in on as a teacher, parent teacher conferences on Thursday. So I will be like scanning social media, just like the rest of you. I probably won't even get to watch the live stream. I'll have to just scan social media and see what's going on.
Apparently I was leaving.
Why does that keep leaving?
I don't know.
I mean, I can see it.
Dipping,
I literally don't.
Dipping out.
I haven't done anything.
All right. We'll see if we have any other quick super
I mean,
chats.
there's clearly something that I'm doing, but I don't know what I'm doing.
You're bumping the space bar again.
But that just unmutes me.
Chris said, geez, a new case selected. I mean, Chris, you're gonna have to explain to me what you mean by that.
Should I just stay in here? I got it. Should I just stay unstaged? Just a black screen?
Yeah, so I don't know what you mean by that. Chris, we have super chat here from Sandra. Just showing my support, maybe all sleep through the night with no pee dreams. You know what, Sandra? I am with you. And I'll report back next week. Over the next 7 days, I will try. If there's ever a night that it's going to happen, it will be on Tuesday night when we're recording, because I'm not drinking, 3 bottles of water while we're recording during this. So
Nicole,
maybe
I don't know. Oh, yeah. I'm so sorry.
Nope, that's right.
I really burst in just like pee when you can't get to the bathroom in time. Go ahead. Sorry, Nicole, I don't know. I didn't see that in the CBS News bulletin. I didn't see the time, so I don't know if it's out there. I apologize. I just looked, and that I literally could only find one piece of news about it. Maybe it's on Twitter or something. I haven't been going on Twitter lately.
Yeah. And in regards to, just going to come back, but what Chris had said, I don't know if you're like upset because we're doing the non-case before we're doing a new case. I'm not sure.
No. The G's was because there was a huge, like, Chris tried to write that nice, like, does this mean you have a new case selected? And then it came through all wonky and he wrote
Oh, gotcha. I understand. Sorry, Chris. I didn't understand what you were saying there. So you were correcting your typo.
Yeah.
No, they don't. The case selection team has not selected one yet. They have like they have a process that involves phases. I don't know what those are. But they go through and they take a bunch of cases. They all screen them and they make it to phase 2, and then they screen again and they go to phase 3, and then they move on. So they're still working and narrowing it down. And then usually what happens is when they get down to 4 cases that they think are good Truth and Justice seasons, then I will get on a Zoom with them, and they usually put together, usually last season, they put together a whole like PowerPoint for each case to show me all the details of those cases. So they're still working on it. So yeah, it'll be a few months, I think, before we get into that. And that's why this whole putting the Adnan case out in the main feed is going to be nice, because hopefully the timing will work out that, shortly after we start releasing those, then we'll get the new case selected. And then that'll give me some time, because those episodes obviously are already produced, that while we're delivering those episodes onto the main feed, I can be reading and researching the case file and getting ready for the next season. And with that, I'm tired.
Jennifer, can you just email me at janet@janetvarney.com?
Doing it.
Yeah.
I'm
oh
emailing
man,
you.
now you're gonna get a million spam
then
emails.
the only person who will see that will be me with my own eyeballs.
Nice. How come I don't have that email address? You make me send yours to your publicist.
What if that were true?
Yeah. Every time I text Jan, I have to text her publicist.
What an asshole.
Yeah. All right. I'm going to end this live stream. Thank you, everybody, for listening and joining. I perked up again,
Thanks, everybody.
and then now I got to do some spirited debate with my buddy Zach.
It was
And
fun.
that woke me up, and now I'm back asleep again.
It
All
was
right.
fun.
Ending the live stream.
I hope you guys enjoyed it.
Thanks, everybody.